Welcome everybody. February 2nd, April Fool's joke continuing. Here we have Ontario guys, Doug Ford and speakers talking about this April Fool's tax. Let's keep it going.
The Prime Minister pause the carbon tax because, ladies and gentlemen, that carbon tax is going to go nowhere but up every April 1st through to 2030. And what does that translate into? According to Grain Farmers of Ontario, they're going to see an additional $2.7 billion worth of expense associated with carbon tax. If you talk to vegetable growers, by the year 2030, carbon tax is going to add on an additional $90,000 per acre in carbon tax. That's not sustainable, ladies and gentlemen, and we need a federal government that understands the importance of being able to compete globally, but most importantly, produce good quality, affordable food close to home. And with that, I would like to introduce Drew Spolstra, the president of OFA, to share his comments. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks, Premier and Ministers, for the opportunity to be here. My name is Drew Spolstra, and I'm a grain, beef, and dairy farmer from just outside of Hamilton in Binbrook, Ontario, where I farm with my parents, my wife, and our 3 little girls. I'm also the president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and like all Ontarians, farmers are worried about costs going up. When our costs go up on the farm and throughout the supply chain, it has a serious impact on everyone. We're doing what we can on farms, but sometimes government actions make it harder. The federal carbon tax is a good example of that. We support a clean environment, but farmers just don't have any alternatives. We have to use fuel and energy to grow the food that we all eat 3 times a day. And that's why we support Premier Ford and the provincial government's request to stop the increase on the carbon tax. We just can't afford it at this time. On my own farm this past fall, I dried about 2,500 tons of grain, and it cost me $4,500 in carbon tax. A greenhouse in my hometown of Hamilton relies on heat provided by burning biomass, but natural gas is still needed to ensure a reliable and stable heating supply throughout the rest of the year. The financial burden is significant. Of $13,614 of a natural gas bill, the carbon tax was $3,837. As the federal carbon tax has steadily increased another 23% this week, Ontario farmers' ability to produce food for a growing population, pursue export opportunities, and meet the goals of the ministry's Grow Ontario strategy is consistently more challenging. Carbon tax stresses margins for everyone up and down the food chain. Carbon tax makes Ontario and Canadian farmers less competitive against imports. Ontario asparagus competes against Mexican and Peruvian product that already has a lower input costs even before the implementation of the tax. Neither the agriculture and food industry nor families can afford this increase. Agriculture has the potential to deliver climate solutions. Eliminating carbon tax on farms and food production and processing are critical to ensure farmers can invest in a sustainable future for their operations.
Hey guys, just a reminder to share this video, like it, give it a little like, just because we're on CensorTube algorithm and it won't go anywhere if you guys don't help. And on the subject of carbon tax, yeah, it kicked off yesterday, April 1st. The joke is on us, and it's going to be a joke that goes on every year until we actually get an election, because we're not getting an election, not just because of Trudeau, because of the NDP preventing that election. So the NDP, Unmet, is holding up the election for as long as he can to get his last cents from the government, because he's once the election happens, he's gone as well. The NDP's gone, Liberals gone, they're losing all their seats, and we're seeing in the polls that it's going to be just a complete slaughter for the Conservatives. Anyways, let's get back to it.
And on fuels like natural gas and propane for critical activities such as heating and cooling livestock barns and greenhouses and drying grain crops to keep them from spoiling. Eliminating the carbon tax will provide relief to farmers, reduce operating costs in this high time of inflation, rising input and energy costs, and will ensure farmers have access to dollars needed to make investments in sustainable technologies such as precision agriculture, alternative heating, cooling, and drying options. OFA stands with OMAFRA and the Ontario government, as well as the provincial national farm organizations and food processors across Canada, against the carbon tax. We support the request to pause the 23% carbon tax hike as a first step towards eliminating this tax in its entirety. We appreciate the support against these rising costs from you, Premier, and ministers. Thanks very much for your support.
And there you have a little summary from the farmer himself. The prices are going to all go up for everything. So all their prices going up to ship everything around, to produce the product, to put it in the stores. The stores' prices go up. The consumer prices go up. It is a full-on tax of the whole ecosystem of Canada.
Thank you so much, Drew. And now I'd like to introduce Nina Tangri, Minister of Small Business, to talk more about the impact of carbon tax. Minister.
Carbon tax, everything.
Well, thank you so much, Minister Thompson, of course, for the warm introduction, and to, of course, everybody present with us today. It really is a pleasure to be here alongside Premier Ford, my cabinet colleagues, Minister Thompson, Minister Mulroney, Minister Sakaria and MPP Liardi, Dan Kelly, President of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and Drew Spolstra from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Small businesses are the backbone of Ontario, employing well over 2 million hardworking people right across our province. The federal government's shameful 23% increase to the carbon tax just yesterday on April 1st will create more hardship for small businesses across the province who are currently facing significant challenges due to the rising cost of living, high interest rates, and inflation. And like you've heard many times from the CFIB, I also hear serious concerns expressed by small businesses in other industries like retail, independent grocers, convenience stores, and many more. Thanks to the federal carbon tax, they're paying more to bring goods to market, keep their lights on, and meet payroll, and also to serve their customers. They're in a constant challenge, not only to thrive, but to survive. This carbon tax doesn't just hurt small businesses, it hurts consumers, families in Ontario and well beyond. Premier Doug Ford and our government will continue to call on the federal Liberals to restore the share of the small businesses to 9% of total fuel charge revenue, give back the money owed to our small businesses, and better yet, scrap the tax completely. By lowering...
Did you hear somebody? Hear. All right, guys, let's keep going.
Taxes, reducing electricity costs, and cutting red tape, we've enabled an estimated $8 billion in cost savings in 2023 alone, with $3.6 billion impacting small businesses directly.
All right, guys, we're going to fast forward here to Doug. Let's hear it.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I'm just so pleased to be here in East Williambury today, joined by Minister Thompson. And by the way, that was a good rah-rah speech. I like that. I like the liar part of that, too. Minister Tangri, Minister Sakaria, Minister Mulroney, MPP Anthony Liardi, and Mayor Bradford, West Williambury, James Leduc, Acting Mayor of East Williambury, Susan.
Why are they reading a teleprompter? The only guy who was reading something that you know he's reading was the guest from the farmer. But her and him are reading a teleprompter outside. Look at their eyes.
Leahy and Mayor of the great township of King, Steve Pellegrini. See, I gave him a little boost all the time. He likes that. And they're members of council as well. I also want to thank Holland Acres and the Van Luke family. Thank you. What an operation they have, folks, here. You talk about what is it, going into fourth generation. They have 3 generations, 1 more going. So congratulations on that. And thank you for hosting us on your beautiful property here. And a massive thank you to many groups that have joined us today. And they said many groups, and I said, I want every single person listed because they've traveled far and wide to come here to show their support.
Holy
Christian
crap,
farmers,
stop thanking everybody.
the Ontario Trucking Association.
He's not going to tell us anything?
From where I live, people are lined up. Everywhere I went, people were lined up. What does that tell you? You know, folks, we have so many people here. I could fill this field, not with hundreds of thousands, millions of people that are against this carbon tax. I'm here today, we're all here today to make it clear. We stand against the carbon tax because we know Ontario families deserve to keep more money and their hard-earned money in their own pockets, not the government's, because we know Ontario businesses can't afford more costly burden. And at a time when the cost of living has never been higher, leaders at every single level of government, they have a duty. They have a duty to do everything we can to keep costs down for the hardworking people of Ontario. That's why, for months, I've been urging the federal government to scrap the carbon tax, and I got to crack that. It hasn't been months. I've been chasing them for years on this thing. And pause yesterday's increase. Not everyone can say they've done the same. For weeks, as the carbon tax hike loomed, Bonnie Crombie has refused to stand against it. Instead, she's dodged questions and desperately tried to change the subject, all while refusing to stand up for taxpayers. In fact, just last week, when given the opportunity to vote against the carbon tax, every single one of Bonnie Crombie's Liberal MPPs sat on their hands and did absolutely nothing. We shouldn't be surprised. Bonnie Crombie is the queen of carbon tax. As a Liberal MP, she was one of the first people in Canada to support the carbon tax. She led the carbon tax charge when she was in Ottawa. As mayor, she raised property taxes every year she was in office, including last year. She gave the largest tax increase in Mississauga's history. And as a Liberal leader, she refuses to stand up against the carbon tax. Ontario families, farmers, and small business owners, they deserve better. They deserve leaders who will stand up for them. They deserve a government that will fight to put more money back into their pockets. That's exactly what our government is doing. Last week, we extended our gas tax cut another 6 months, keeping 10.7 cents of every single liter back into your pockets instead of the government's. That's on top of eliminating road tolls and scrapping the license plate sticker fee. We're saving drivers hundreds of dollars every year, money that's going back into people's pockets where it belongs. And you can bet, as Bonnie Crombie, the queen of the carbon tax, remains silent, our government will never stop fighting the federal government on their terrible carbon tax. I want to thank everyone for coming today, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
Want to answer any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Premier Ford. Your message.
Thanks, Minister. Thank you, Premier. It is really good to be here today, but to talk about a very difficult challenge for small and medium-sized businesses. Yesterday's 23% increase in the carbon tax made for small businesses a bad problem even worse. When the tax was first introduced in 2019, the feds made a couple of promises to small businesses and to the public. One, that it would be made revenue neutral. Second, that the tax, that some of the rebates would go back not just to consumers, but to small and medium-sized businesses. Well, in fact, the reason that the carbon tax has never, not for one single year, been revenue neutral is because the federal government has not rebated the money back to small and medium-sized businesses as they committed to do in 2019. So for the past 5 years, not just consumers, but small, medium-sized businesses and on much of farm use as well, we have been paying the carbon tax too. We estimate 40% of the burden of the carbon tax is coming from the business community, and the federal government has not rebated any of the money back that it had promised. They are now sitting on $2.5 billion that has been taken and promised to small and medium-sized businesses. And Premier, here in Ontario alone, that's $1.3 billion that was supposed to be rebated to SMEs here in this province.
Thanks.
Okay, question period, guys. In the farm.
Thank you. Ready?
We will now go to reporters' questions. Reporters, please line up at the mic behind me. It'll be one question, one follow-up. First question.
Hi there, Alan Hale from Queen's Park today.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, so I'm just wondering how you square this concern about the cost of the carbon tax with Bill 165, which is a law your government has put forward to overturn a Ontario Energy Board decisions to allow Enbridge to increase increase natural gas rates. And does that not seem a little strange considering how much you're talking about? And I would also like to hear from the OFA and the Federation of Independent Businesses about what a raise of the natural gas rates would have an impact on their members.
Well, first of all, OEB has no right making policies, and the folks that made those policies, well, they'll be taken care of. But we drive the policies, and I'll tell you, we're going to make sure that every single company out there is competitive. And do you remember the time when we took the federal government to court about the carbon tax? We lost the court case. It was forced down our throat, and we're going to return every single dollar that on our share of the provincial side. But make no mistake about it, we're the only government. Think of this, folks. We're the only government that I can think of right across the country, for sure in Ontario. We've never raised the tax. We've never raised the tax on businesses. We've reduced the burden by $8 billion every single year. We've never raised the tax on people, not one single tax, and we aren't going to raise the tax. We look at growth through revenue growth by 700,000 more people working today than 5.5 years ago, that the previous government chased 300,000 jobs out of the province. This carbon tax, it's killing businesses. We're working hard every single day to attract new businesses from around the world and support our existing businesses. And this is just punishing, crippling companies out there. And we're going to fight it tooth and nail every single day.
Next.
Can I hear from the OFA and the independent businesses on a possible natural gas hike?
Sure. Get up to the podium.
Well, natural gas is certainly part of the solution going forward for Ontario farmers. It's a critical piece of infrastructure that OFA has long lobbied for natural gas infrastructure in this province, and we appreciate the support of the government looking at options to pursue natural gas expansion. And it's part of the solution for farmers in terms of clean fuel. It's the cleanest option that we have to dry our grain, to heat our barns, and it's part of that solution going forward. So we're encouraged to see some steps going forward on what natural gas expansion looks like, and hope there's more to come.
Okay.
I'll just quickly add from C5B's perspective, no rate increase is a good increase for small businesses at this time. So many small and medium-sized businesses are struggling. So we'd love to see all rates and charges frozen as long as we possibly can. I will add, though, on natural gas, one of the things that we have been pushing for, and I know the Ontario government has as well, is to remove the carbon tax on natural gas, as was done for home heating oil. That would be a significant reduction for not just for consumers, but for small and medium-sized firms as well.
Thank you.
And I might add, it was my colleague, the MP Ben Lobb from Huron-Bruce, that came forward with a private members initiative to exempt farmers from heating their barns and or drying their crops at the federal level. And unfortunately, it was Prime Minister Trudeau and his government that has held that bill up. And as a result, the carbon tax remains on important infrastructure that we need to produce food in Ontario. Thank you.
Trudeau and his gang of thieves, guys, always at it.
Having heard that from the independent businesses, why are you passing a law to raise natural gas rates on not only small businesses, but everybody in Ontario so that you can keep the price of houses down slightly?
Well, we aren't passing any law to increase any taxes. I don't know where you're getting that from, but anyways, we will be working with our small businesses to keep all rates down and all taxes down.
Yeah, what is this guy pushing about this bill? Does anybody know? Write in the comments below. I'm unfamiliar with this in Ontario.
But let's cut to the chase. This carbon tax has to go, or in a year and a half, the Prime Minister's going. As simple as that.
Both.
He will be going. I'll guarantee you, he will not be there. If he doesn't start looking after the people and the businesses of Ontario, the ideology they have is just beyond me. I do not understand it at all.
They're trying to ruin the country on purpose.
Okay, this will be the last question.
Morning, Premier Ford. My name is Joshua Santos. I'm with Newmarket today. You talked about just how there was people lining up for the gas over the weekend with the tax coming up. Or anticipating it. What do you think about this carbon tax essentially having an effect from gas to even grocery prices? Farmers are going to have to pass the price on to grocery stores.
Excellent question.
So what do you think about just some families that are already...
I mean, that's not really a question. He's already gone over this. It affects every chain of the line down. So it's kind of a weird question. Very broad and repeating. Okay.
Struggling to provide.
Yeah, what this does, we're trying to keep the inflation low across the country. Bank of Canada still have their interest rates hiked up there. They're saying, well, we got to reduce inflation. It went down to 2.9, then went down to 2.8. And all of a sudden this comes along. 30% of inflation is fuel and energy cost. It's going to affect every single product that gets put on a truck, and that's 99.9% of the products that travel across this province and this country. It's going to increase the packaging of the products. It's going to increase everything across the board. You know, every poll I've seen, no matter if it's a federal poll, provincial, municipal, number one issue, bar none, is affordability. Is affordable homes, affordable gas, and affordable groceries. And the gas is tied in to absolutely everything. And I call out the Bank of Canada. We have to start lowering these interest rates. You're going to end up killing people over the next year or 2 years when they renew their mortgages. And you're just gouging these people for no reason at all. We need to lower the interest rates, and we need to make sure that we get rid of this carbon tax. You know, we see our economy still strong considering the rest of the world. We've seen investments in EV of $28 billion. I figure another $30 billion of investments coming to our province because it's a safe haven of capitalism and making sure we support businesses that support the workers. I always say when companies do good, so do the teams that work within those companies do good. Everyone prospers and thrives and grow. So that's what we're going to do, continue focusing on bringing companies in, good paying jobs with bigger paychecks for the common hardworking people out there.
All right, next question. And that's the show, everybody. There you have Ontario. Ernie Racing News, guys. Rate what you think in the comments below. What do you think about what Doug Ford is saying after what he's already done in the past during COVIDism? Cheers.